The first thing I noticed was how quiet the world became when the snow started falling too fast. The second thing was the way Elena looked at me and said, calm but serious, that we were not getting out of this unless we stayed warm together. That was the moment I realized this trip was going to change everything I thought I knew about her and about myself. My name is Lucas. I am 24 years old, living in a small apartment on the edge of Denver, Colorado. The city is close enough that I can hear it if I open my window, but far enough that it never feels crowded. I work freelance as a coder, mostly building simple websites for small businesses, coffee shops, yoga studios, places that want something clean and quiet. I like the work because it lets me stay home, work in sweatpants, and keep my life predictable. Predictable has always felt safe to me. I am not great with people. Never have been. I keep my distance without even trying. I had a girlfriend once in college. She said I was closed off. She was right. Walls are easier than explaining yourself. My best friend Jake is the opposite. He is loud, confident, and always chasing the next thing. He works in sales and somehow makes it look easy. We have been friends since high school, and he has spent years trying to pull me out of my comfort zone. Last week, he called me with that excited tone he gets when he has already decided something for both of us. Lucas, you have to come to Aspen with me. Ski trip. A few days. My treat. I told him skiing was not my thing. He ignored that. My mom's coming too, he added. She needs a break. It'll be chill. That should have made it easier to say no. Somehow, it did the opposite. Elena is 44. I have known her since I was 15. She was never the loud mom or the overly friendly one. She was quiet, observant, always felt like she was somewhere else, even when she was right in front of you. Jake once told me she used to be a war photographer. I believed it. She carried herself like someone who had seen things most people never would. I never thought of her as anything other than Jake's mom. Beautiful, sure, but completely off limits. Not even a thought. I let myself finish. Until Aspen. The lodge was warm and crowded, full of noise and laughter. Jake and his friends were already planning backcountry trails and late nights. I felt out of place almost immediately. Elena sat by the window with a thermos, watching the snow drift down outside. She looked peaceful in a way I did not expect. The next morning, Jake and his group left early to snowboard through the forest trails. They were loud and excited. I stayed behind, nursing a coffee by the fire. Elena walked over and asked if I was joining them. When I said no, she smiled in a way that felt like understanding. I would rather walk than fall down a mountain, she said. So we went for a walk. The trail was simple. Snow-covered trees. Quiet air. The kind of silence that feels heavy, but not lonely. We talked about small things. My work. Her editing job. Nothing deep, nothing dangerous. Then, the sky changed. The snow came fast. Thick and blinding. The trail disappeared under fresh powder. My phone lost signal. The cold sank in quicker than I expected. We tried to turn back. We could not find the path. That was when I started to panic. Elena did not. She told me to stop, to breathe, to think. Her voice was steady, but I could see the cold taking hold of her too. Her hands were shaking. Her lips were pale. We found a small cabin by chance. Old, bare, but dry. I managed to start a fire. The warmth filled the space slowly like a promise. We sat close on a wooden bench, wrapped in wool blankets. The storm screamed outside, but inside, everything felt strangely still. That was when she looked at me and said it. We will have to keep each other warm. She did not say it like a joke. She said it like a fact. And sitting there, shoulder to shoulder, firelight dancing across her face, I knew this was no longer just about surviving the storm. The fire settled into a steady crackle, and the cabin slowly filled with warmth. My fingers still felt numb, but the ache was fading. Outside, the wind howled like it was angry we had found shelter. Inside, it felt like time had stopped. Elena pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and let out a slow breath. I could see the tension in her face easing, just a little. The red scarf she had been wearing was damp, darkened by melted snow. She untied it and set it aside, and when she did, a few strands of her hair fell loose around her face. "You did good," she said quietly, nodding toward the fire. "A lot of people would have panicked worse." I let out a short laugh. I was panicking, just trying not to show it. She smiled at that, a real smile, softer than the polite ones I was used to seeing from her. "That counts." We sat there for a while without talking. The silence felt different now, not awkward, not heavy, just calm. The kind of quiet you only get when there is nothing left to do but wait. I glanced at her hands resting in her lap. They were still shaking slightly. "You're still cold," I said. She nodded once. "Yeah, a little." Without really thinking about it, I shifted closer. The bench was narrow and our sides touched. She tensed for a second, then relaxed. I draped my jacket over her shoulders on top of the blanket. She looked at me, surprised. "You don't have to," she said. "I know," I replied, "but I want to." She didn't argue. She just pulled the jacket tighter and let her shoulder lean into mine. The heat from the fire mixed with the warmth between us, and something in my chest loosened. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. It was hard to tell. "Elena," I said carefully, "are you okay?" She stared into the fire before answering. "I didn't think I was this tired," she said, "not just today. In general." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure what to say. "You don't ever really stop, do you?" Her lips curved in a small, sad smile. "Not for a long time." She told me about traveling for work, about always being strong because someone had to be, about Jake growing up fast after his dad died. Her voice stayed calm, but every word felt heavy, like it had been waiting to come out. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't try to fix anything. At some point, her hand brushed mine. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. Our fingers rested together, not gripping just there. "Thank you for listening," she said softly. "Anytime," I replied, and meant it more than I expected. The fire popped loudly, making us both jump. She laughed quietly, then stopped, like she was embarrassed by the sound. "I forgot what it's like to feel normal," she admitted. "Just sitting somewhere without needing to be anything." I looked at her then, really looked at her, not as my best friend's mom, not as the composed woman I had always known, just as someone tired and human and right there with me. "You can just be here," I said. "That's enough." She met my eyes, and for a moment, the air between us felt charged. Closer, warmer than the fire. The storm outside showed no sign of stopping, and neither of us moved away. The night stretched on longer than I expected. The fire stayed steady, but the cold still pressed in from the walls. The wind shook the cabin now and then, like it was testing us. Elena shifted closer without saying anything, pulling the blanket tighter around both of us. Our knees touched. This time, neither of us pretended it was an accident. "If the fire dies," she said quietly, "we'll wake up cold fast." "I'll keep it going," I replied. "I'll take first watch." She shook her head. "No, we'll take turns." There it was again, that calm authority, not bossy, just sure, I nodded. We sat shoulder to shoulder, watching the flames like they were telling a story only we could hear. The light softened her face. The sharp edges I'd always noticed seemed to fade. She looked younger, not in age, but in the way her guard was down. "Lucas," she said after a long pause, "can I tell you something?" "Yeah," I said. "Anything." She took a breath. "When Jake asked you to come on this trip, I was glad. Not just for him, for me." I turned my head slightly. "Why?" "Because you don't look at me like everyone else does," she said. "You don't expect anything." I didn't know how to answer that, so I stayed quiet. She continued. "Most of my life I've been someone's anchor, someone's constant. Even when I was exhausted, I stayed strong because it felt safer than falling apart." Quote. Her voice cracked just a little on the last word. I reached out before I could overthink it and rested my hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand so our fingers fit together naturally, like they had practiced. "You don't have to be strong tonight," I said. "We're just two people stuck in the same place." She looked at me then, really looked. Her green eyes searched my face like she was trying to decide something important. "That's the problem," she said softly. It doesn't feel like just that. My heartbeat picked up. The cabin felt smaller, warmer, louder in its quiet. I know this is complicated, she added quickly. And I know who I am to you, who I'm supposed to be. I'm not thinking about that, I said honest. Not right now. She swallowed. Her grip on my hand tightened. I haven't felt seen in a long time, she said. Not like this. Something shifted between us. Not rushed, not sudden, just real. She leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. Her forehead rested against mine. I could feel her breath, warm and shaky. For a moment, we stayed like that, frozen in the space between yes and no. Then she kissed me. It was soft, careful, like she was afraid of breaking something fragile. I kissed her back just as gently, my other hand resting at her side through the blanket. The kiss didn't rush anywhere. It stayed exactly where it was meant to be. When we pulled back, her eyes were glossy but steady. I needed that, she whispered. So did I said. We didn't go any further. We didn't need to. She rested her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, holding her close enough to share warmth. Her body relaxed against mine, the tension finally leaving her muscles. We took turns feeding the fire, talking in quiet pieces. She told me about places she'd seen. I told her about nights spent coding alone, convincing myself I liked the silence. Sometime after midnight, she fell asleep. I stayed awake, listening to her breathing, even and calm. I watched the fire. I watched the shadows move. I felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. At some point, exhaustion pulled me under too. When I woke, the fire was low, and the cabin was filled with gray morning light. Elena stirred, lifting her head slightly. Our eyes met. For a second there was panic, then relief. You're still here, she said. Yeah, I replied, still here. She smiled, small and tired, and squeezed my hand once. Outside, the storm had softened, and somewhere in the distance, a sound began to rise. A low, steady thump. Rescue was coming, and suddenly, neither of us was ready for the world to come back. The sound grew louder until the cabin walls started to vibrate. A helicopter. Real and unmistakable. Relief hit me first, fast and sharp. Then something else followed right behind it. A quiet sadness I was not ready to name. Elena sat up slowly, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Her hair was messy, her face pale but calm. She looked at me like she was memorizing something. They found us, she said. Yeah, I replied. Looks like it. We stood in silence for a moment. The fire was almost out now, just glowing embers. The cabin that had felt so safe suddenly felt small, like it was already letting us go. We stepped outside together. The cold rushed back in, biting at my skin. The sky was gray, the storm finally easing. Rescue workers waved from the clearing below, their voices carried by the wind. Then I saw Jake. He ran toward us the moment he spotted Elena. He wrapped his arms around her so tight, I thought he might knock her over. She held him back just as tightly, her hand gripping the back of his jacket. I was so scared, he said, his voice breaking. I know, she replied. I'm okay. We're okay. He turned to me and pulled me into a rough hug. Man, thank you, he said. I don't even know what to say. Just glad we're out, I said, and meant it. The ride back was loud and crowded. Blankets, questions, radios buzzing. Elena sat across from me, her posture straight again, her calm mask slowly sliding back into place. But when our eyes met, just once, I saw it, the same quiet connection from the night before. Still there, still real. Back at the lodge, everything moved fast. Hot drinks, medical checks, people talking over each other. Jake stayed close to Elena, answering questions, keeping her wrapped in concern. I stayed a few steps back, letting the moment pass. We left Aspen the next morning. The car ride back to Denver felt longer than the drive up. Jake talked nonstop, replaying the rescue, laughing too loud like he was trying to shake off the fear. Elena sat in the front seat, quiet, looking out the window. I watched her reflection in the glass, wondering if she was thinking about the cabin, too. When we got back, life rushed in like it always does. Days passed. Then weeks. I went back to my apartment. back to my laptop, back to quiet nights and steady routines. But something was different. The silence felt heavier now, like it had learned a new shape. I did not text her right away. I did not know how. When I finally did, it was simple, just asking if she was okay. She did not reply. I told myself it was for the best, that the night in the cabin was just that, a night. Something intense and real, but meant to stay where it happened. I tried to believe it. Then one evening, I came home to find a small package outside my door. Inside was her red scarf, folded carefully, still faintly smelling like pine and coffee. There was a note tucked inside. Not the last night, but not the first either. Thank you for keeping me warm. I sat on the floor holding it for a long time. We did not rush into anything after that. Sometimes I see her when I visit Jake. Sometimes she smiles at me the way she always did. Sometimes her eyes linger just a second longer than they used to. We never talk about the cabin. We do not need to. Some moments are not meant to be explained. They are meant to be carried. I keep the scarf on a shelf in my apartment, not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I found. That night, in the snow, taught me something I did not know I needed to learn, that even the quiet ones can be seen. That warmth does not always come from fire, and that sometimes, in the middle of a storm, two people can meet exactly where they are supposed to, and that can be enough.